Every inch of the girl's skin is covered in text, each word painstakingly carved by her biological father without any anesthesia. The girl's father continuously treats her body as a draft to organize his inspirations as a writer. The girl's name is Miku. Though she detests and fears her father's actions, she initially chose to endure them. After all, her father had once loved her deeply. Father Mikawa is a highly renowned writer whose novels possess a unique charm. Miku's mother is a beautiful actress. However, she divorced Mikawa abruptly after Miku's birth. Afterwards, Mikawa began to raise Miku alone. In Miku's memory, her father had always been very gentle and doting. However, one day without warning, Mikawa abruptly started teaching her art and locked her in his collection room. Within the dimly lit room were various firearms and cold weapons. Since Miku entered this room of weapon collections, she never saw the outside world again, not even attending kindergarten or elementary school. Miku lived every day in the shadow of her father, especially when Mikawa saw glimpses of Miku's mother in her. He intensified his torment of Miku. While carving words on Miku's body, Mikawa would shout, "I hate you." Every time this happened, Miku would cry and say, "Daddy, I love you." She tried to use her love to bring back the once gentle father, but it proved futile. Miku's pleas had no effect on Mikawa. Miku refused to forget the love her father once showed her. But Mikawa's torment grew increasingly severe. The immense mental anguish and physical pain finally gave rise to another personality within Miku. Miku named this second personality Fumika. Whenever Miku felt despair due to the pain in her body, Fumika would appear to accompany her. In the stories told by Fumika, there are princes and princesses, along with various adorable animals. The fairy tale world described by Fumika gives Miku the courage to continue living on. One day, to everyone's surprise, Mikawa allowed Miku to attend middle school, having never ventured far from her father. Miku felt both unfamiliar and fearful in the school environment. However, she met Natsuka, a carefree girl, who was the first outsider to interact with Miku besides her father. They got along well, and Natsuka helped Miku adapt to school life quickly. Additionally, Miku encountered Takashiko, a boy who liked her. Takashiko's sudden appearance caught Miku off guard, leaving her unsure of how to react. Overwhelmed, she made the choice to leave, but just as Miku was slowly integrating into school life, her father's sudden reappearance once again plunged Miku into darkness. This time, Fumika, concerned for Miku's safety, took control of Miku's body and shot Mikawa, injuring him. However, Miku believed she had mistakenly killed her father, and she isolated herself completely. Ignoring even Fumika's words, Miku remained in this coma for a full 4 years. As her alter ego, Fumika, in order to continuously protect Miku, became the messenger of the underworld. In this world, after a person dies, they have one more chance. They can write the words they didn't get to say in life on a letter, which will then be delivered to the living by a special messenger of the underworld. This letter is known as a Shigofumi. Fumika's role is that of the messenger of the underworld. Every messenger is equipped with a talking wand as an assistant. All the messengers of the underworld who serve in this role have died once before. The appearance and bodies of the other messengers will no longer change. But Fumika is an exception. She continues to grow little by little, just like a human. As Fumika moves between the two worlds, delivering messages to the deceased, she encounters Takashiko, who had once confessed his feelings to Miku. Takashiko recognizes Fumika, mistaking her for Miku since they look identical. Takashiko wanted to clarify Fumika's identity, but Fumika chose to evade the situation. Undeterred, Takashiko seeks out Natsuka, Miku's only friend from middle school, who confirms that Miku indeed fell into a coma after shooting her father. During these 4 years, Miku has been undergoing treatment in the hospital. In contrast, her father, Mikawa, who was saved in time, has resumed a normal life. Despite being a renowned writer, Mikawa had been unable to write a single word during this time, leaving the company that relied on his work for income in a precarious position. The company decides to send Haruno as an assistant to Mikawa. By coincidence, Haruno turns out to be Natsuka's sister. Natsuka effortlessly obtained Mikawa's home address from her sister, prompting them to immediately head to Mikawa's house. Meanwhile, Fumika, entrusted by a recently deceased woman who was a fan of Mikawa, was tasked with delivering a message to him. This woman had committed suicide by jumping off a building after reading Mikawa's works, longing for the afterlife depicted in his novels. Fumika arrived at Mikawa's residence and handed him the letter. After reading the letter, Mikawa not only felt no remorse for the woman's death but found her words repulsive. At this moment, Fumika, unable to contain herself, scolded Mikawa, calling him a beast. Mikawa, however, was not angered by Fumika's words. He even introduced her to others as his daughter. Fumika once again raised her gun towards him, but Takashiko intervened. While everyone tried to calm Fumika down, Mikawa suddenly aimed his gun directly at Fumika. Takashiko, unable to hold back any longer, rushed forward and fiercely beat Mikawa before locking him in a storage room. Meanwhile, Fumika's wounds had rapidly healed. Both Takashiko and Natsuka wanted to know what had happened 4 years ago, and why she had shot her father. Fumika didn't hide anything and revealed to them all that had transpired. She explained that she was not Miku but her alter ego. Meanwhile, while locked up, Mikawa dismantled all the bullets hidden in toys, poured out the gunpowder, and ignited it, successfully escaping. Upon hearing the explosion, Fumika rushed over. At this moment, Mikawa was selecting a weapon, preparing to eliminate them. Fumika swiftly locked Takashiko and Haruno outside. Despite Mikawa's attempts at resistance, Fumika charged at him, knocking him down with a punch. Every time Fumika thinks about the things Miku has gone through, she would have loved to tear Mikawa to pieces. In the moment before Fumika could act, Takashiko and Haruno, assisted by the talking wand, rushed in, halting her in time. The talking wand repeatedly reminded Fumika that as the messenger of the underworld, shooting someone would severely disrupt the balance of both worlds, and both worlds would not forgive her. However, Fumika, consumed by her desire to eliminate Mikawa, disregarded these warnings. As Fumika was about to strike, Haruno grabbed her hand and proposed a plan to use Mikawa to raise enough money for Miku's medical expenses. Mikawa claimed he had lost his inspiration and could no longer write. Yet, faced with Haruno's determined gaze, he reluctantly agreed. Haruno found a solution for this situation, but what troubled Fumika the most was Miku, who remained unconscious. However, from now on, she was not alone in waiting for Miku to wake up. Alongside her were Takashiko and Natsuka, who were willing to accompany Fumika until Miku fully regained consciousness. Takashiko informed Fumika that talking to patients continuously could aid in her recovery. Consequently, Fumika began recounting everything she had experienced recently to Miku. Fumika's narration reminded Natsuka of her past life with Miku at school. During those days, Natsuka had noticed Miku often secluded in the infirmary, talking to herself. It was only now that she understood Miku must have been communicating with Fumika. Fumika disclosed that she had always wanted to help the introverted Miku make friends. However, her words left Takashiko bewildered, as he too was uncertain whether he had feelings for Fumika or Miku at that time. This 65-year-old grandmother possesses an enviable 15-year-old appearance. Her name is Sanjo, just like Fumika, both serving as messengers of the underworld. However, having a teenage body makes her restless, causing sleepless nights. Sanjo greatly envies her colleague Fumika because Fumika can gradually grow older with time, although both are messengers of the underworld from the afterlife. Sanjo's body and appearance remain frozen at the moment of her death. Unlike Fumika, whose body continues to age like a human, this perplexes Sanjo, as all messengers of the underworld are supposed to be individuals who have died once. It's not until Sanjo encounters a girl in the hospital who looks exactly like Fumika that she realizes Fumika is actually a split personality of the comatose Miku. Even though Miku has been in a deep slumber for 4 years, Fumika cannot be considered deceased. Fumika undertakes the role of messenger of the underworld to protect Miku, normally a workaholic. Fumika takes a complete turn this time. This is because her current assignment is related to Sanjo, who remains completely unaware. Sanjo even contemplates inviting Fumika on a trip, unaware that the usually work-driven Fumika surprisingly agrees. However, the destination is left to Fumika's discretion. Soon, the group sailed across the sea, heading towards a southern island. During this journey, Natsuka and Takashiko, after learning about Fumika's background, couldn't help but become particularly curious about Sanjo's origins. Sanjo didn't hide anything and casually mentioned that she had died in a car accident. In her account, the driver of the vehicle at that time was actually a boy. Although she omitted details about him, she proudly told everyone that they could ask her, who was an old grandmother. any questions they had about relationships between men and women. Fumika's destination was a distant uninhabited island. Nobody knew why Fumika insisted on going there. Meanwhile, another girl was also heading to that uninhabited island. Fumika also openly told others that on that island, besides the dead, there was nothing else. This made Natsuka, being human, start to feel a bit scared. However, in Fumika's view, the dead were very gentle. Natsuka, feeling a bit scared, took a step back, but accidentally fell down the stairs, colliding with the girl heading to the uninhabited island. The girl introduced herself as Suzune. She had come to this uninhabited island to pay respects at a grave. Upon hearing her story, everyone began to admire Suzune's courage. However, Suzune was there because of a boy she had a crush on. She always lacked the courage to confess her feelings to him. It was only when she heard that paying respects at a grave could help improve one's love fortune that she mustered the courage to go to the uninhabited island to pay respects. Amid playful banter, the lovely night quickly passed. The next day, the group boarded a ship headed for the deserted island. However, they were curious about Suzune's purpose. Suzune explained that she was going to visit her grandfather's grave on the island, as her grandfather, Chisho, was once the owner of this deserted island. When Sanjo heard the name Chisho, she seemed taken aback. It was a name she was all too familiar with. Yet she didn't inquire about Suzune's grandfather. Upon reaching the island, Suzune went to pay respects at her grandfather's grave. Sanjo couldn't help but constantly gaze in the direction Suzune had gone. At this moment, Sanjo couldn't hold back any longer and confided in Fumika about her inner thoughts. Sanjo, who had been deceased for 50 years, recently returned to the place where she grew up. However, everything from her childhood, including her home and school, had vanished without a trace. While Sanjo understood that after 50 years, changes in her hometown were expected, she couldn't help but envy Fumika's ability to age gradually. Time had taken away her loved ones, friends, and lovers, leaving Sanjo unchanged. Seeing Sanjo feeling down, Fumika suggested accompanying her to visit Suzune's grandfather's grave. They arrived at the grave site. Sanjo approached the tombstone, greeting the long-lost loved one. It turned out that Suzune's grandfather, Chisho, was Sanjo's lover 50 years ago. Sanjo looked at Chisho's granddaughter, now a grown woman, and she knew that Chisho must have lived a very happy life over these 50 years. With sincerity, Sanjo prayed for Chisho. However, when she turned around, she saw a tombstone engraved with her own name and filled with words. She stood frozen in place. So, it turns out that Fumika's task this time was entrusted by Chisho, and the words on this tombstone are the Shigofumi he sent to Sanjo. Suzune was deeply puzzled by the sudden appearance of Sanjo's name on her grandfather's tombstone, as Chisho had been single all his life. Suzune's mother, a survivor of a car accident and orphaned, had been adopted by Chisho. In that moment, long-sealed memories flooded back into Sanjo's heart. They had met while rescuing a cat, where Chisho's earnest and slightly foolish demeanor had always amused Sanjo. That day, they agreed to come to this uninhabited island to play. An accidental physical contact led to subtle changes in their relationship. As they headed back home at the end of that journey, Chisho finally gathered the courage to confess his feelings to Sanjo. But the next moment, an accident occurred. From that moment on, the two lovers were separated by life and death. And now, the contents of the Shigofumi left by Chisho on the tombstone are a marriage proposal to Sanjo. He wants to say the words he couldn't say 50 years ago. Sanjo, with tears in her eyes, mockingly asks him why there is no engagement ring. Despite her words, her hand reaches out. And so, Sanjo left all her regrets and love on that memory-filled uninhabited island. During this journey, Suzune also found the courage to bravely pursue love. Fumika, who completed her task, returned to Miku's side, awaiting Miku's awakening. However, on this day, while Fumika was carrying out her task, Miku unexpectedly woke up without any warning. This brought immense joy to her friends who had been anxiously waiting for him. But at this moment, Fumika, repeatedly, was wiping the handgun she often carried with her. This gun was the one Miku used to shoot his own father before falling into a coma. Yet now, Fumika had affixed postage stamps from the underworld on it. The reason Fumika did this was to have Miku use this gun to kill her after waking up.